Violetta Millman. Dwight is not here. And Michael Williams.
Here.
Virginia Witherow. Here. Shayla Allen.
Quorum is present,
Yes, sir.
okay. Pledge of allegiance. Who's gonna say? Virginia.
Put your right hand over your heart, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, before we begin, one adjustment to the agenda, action item number 6. We're removing that from the agenda. Okay, student report. Here you go.
Hello guys, so first I want to talk about the events that ASB has had in the past month. We had a Beetlejuice event, this is connected to the movie, this is the Celebrate School Spirit, and we had the end of fall sports, since this event just ended for fall sports, and we celebrated that with a lunch celebration with different posters made by ASB at the blog. And we also had our last home football game on November 1st, which we also decorated during both games. And we also won that game as well. And we celebrated Disability Awareness Month by having a lunch event with students for students. And we had French Club had a fashion show last Friday that had a pretty big turnout here in MPR actually. And we Playpro just finished their fall play, and we also had a haunted house during the Halloween. And tomorrow, ASB is holding a Native American Heritage Month event at the Plaza during lunch, and we have a Winter Wonderland event on Friday during lunch also. And band has a concert coming up on Thursday.
That's it. Oh, a lot of activity. Thank you. Okay, open communication then. No, okay. UTLA.
Good early evening, Richard Franzo reporting for UTLA here at Birmingham Community Charter High School. Just a few items. We've been discussing, talking with administration specifically, Sarah Bennett, about an upcoming evaluation committee. One of the things we're interested in is what have been the shared practices thus far in relation to evaluations? How have administrators been using the tool? What are the commonalities? What are the flaws? What are consistencies around? Our Birmingham Virtual Academy, there's a discussion about expansion, possibly under school. Also a possible MOU for a 504 stipend, somebody to assist writing 504s and understanding some of the laws change there. One of the incessant things going on now, we have the targeting problem, and our absences also have pretty much plateaued without our attendance and our tardies. We're basically stagnated. It's not gotten worse. I was talking to somebody about this on the way over here, and she just flat out said bad. And so that's where we're at there. One of the other things that's kind of come up is in relation to some basic professionalism and whatnot with staff and administration. I just ask that we stop with the Friday calls. Okay? If it's a non-urgent item, Friday afternoon is not a good time to be notifying somebody for something that's not urgent and let them go into the weekend in a panic. If we could curtail some of that, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. CU report. Moving on. Informational items. There are 3 overnight trips, girls wrestling, boys wrestling and boys soccer and World Pride Choir Festival, all on the agenda for approval. Okay, committee reports, human resources. Ruben.
Yeah, so we, at our meeting, we talked about the recently concluded open enrollment. So one of the things that we changed this year, I mentioned before, was that we had an active open enrollment instead of passive, meaning that every employee had to log on to the system to go through the benefits, to select what they wanted for the coming year. The reason why the committee chose to do that, was because there was a concern that people might be just rolling over the same thing every year and not looking at some of the optional benefit programs that we offer. So the hope was that by doing an active open enrollment, they would see those things. So I was curious if there had been an uptick in the selection of the optional items. And so there's a chart, as you can see, but it's in your Dropbox. And what you'll see is that for all but one of the major optional things we offer, the long-term, short-term disability, flexible spending account, dependent care spending account, there was an uptick, and in some cases, a pretty significant one. We had 9% more employees select long-term disability, 8% more select flexible spending account. So it does seem as though people, when they went in to actually look at the options, were looking at those things and were in some cases selecting them. So it seems like it was a good move to go from the passive to the active open enrollment. So we'll continue that in subsequent years. So discussing that. That's it.
Thank you. Facilities.
Good evening again, Richard Franco for facilities here. I'll start with the cafeteria, just adjacent to us. A lot of discussion, a lot of work has gone into this. Looks like during the winter, they're going to start the refresh of the student and faculty area. It will start first with removing the floor in the serving area for students. Asbestos have been found in that floor, and so abatement actions will be taken. That should take a week, and then they'll move over to the faculty side. Well, the plan is to put in a nice polished concrete floor with some etching in and if there's time, there are some plans for decorating the area, painting the walls, and having some other hangers and whatnot. This person has seen the layouts for it. It looks nice and bright and fresh. The hope is that can get to before the winter break. Technology here in Birmingham, multi-factor identification has been completed. Projects in progress will include Google Voice, our secondary internet, the new firewall, and some Wi-Fi improvements. Our Barracuda system, the number of incidents created has been decreasing. That's looking for spam and some illicit activity. October was our most redirected of any month, although this is most that was coming in is captured. Capital projects are roofing here. It looks like it's about 85% done. Currently, there are extra workers on site moving this project forward. Lionel has requested that the footprint of some of the areas that they're working on be reduced. If you walk around the campus, you'll see that there are a bunch of beds and some affected areas put up. So in relation to the roofs right now, they're working on the library and the Blue Coat Center. The main building is mostly complete. Some of these overhanging canopies are next. The backside of the old gym, which is also some of it adjacent to us here, will be worked on over the summer. They're going to remove stucco and put in some new stabilizing devices there to protect from the rain. The main gym, the final decision hasn't been made what to do there. I heard something mentioned about concrete, but we shall see. The Performing Arts Center is nearly complete. the scope of this work project has been extended to April, which is an extra 180 days. Two of our structures, 56 and 57, have unique roofs that are shingle and LUSD, so that they will replace those roofs with shingles. So that should be nice. Thus far, as we understand, LUSD spent about $9 billion on this project. Out of the 400s, where we have four new bungalows, two of which are being operational right now. Two of those bungalows are temporary power. The transformer for those bungalows and the two other new ones that are almost online, that transformer has arrived. It arrived yesterday. They're working on installing that. It can take up to 2 weeks. In relation to the new bungalows, the ideal would be the two of them that have it open, that they could possibly open next semester. The floors were finished today. The fire's coming in on Friday. Waiting on furniture. The furniture is needed for OSHA final walkthrough and approval. Our track is also mostly done, about 95%. Going through some final walkthroughs soon here. All of the fields are in progress. They're done, but for the JV softball field, the PE area, most likely that field there, it's not being dealt with now, but hopefully over the summer. Those fields haven't been refreshed in a while, but the school's done a pretty good job maintaining the quality and integrity of those fields. So there's a refresh there. The gym floors should be done over all the way. And then maintenance and operations. There's a new vacancy position has been posted. It's actually a new type of position. It's a 4 and 4 hours working the maintenance side, and then 4 hours working on the ground. So that's a position. We had an issue with a water heater breaking between rooms E30 and E32. Unfortunately, that collaboration space, they had to take out the floors there, clean all of that out. That work is in progress. There's some new staff restrooms that doors for access need to be replaced, and the doors for those rooms are on back order. The areas I'm talking about is there's a new faculty restroom over in the 400s, and there's a new faculty restroom over by the soccer field at this as well. In our oral arts building, the restrooms there, which are right off of our quad area, where a lot of students need, a lot of students use those restrooms. The pipes there gotten severely clogged, and we've had to seek outside assistance on clearing those. And lastly, there's been a new parking area created over near our HR and our business office buildings, fenced off, and now the lines have been completed, waiting for the parking blocks or the blocks that the parking car is going to be installed. And that's about all I have.
Thank you.
Was there any question? Sorry.
Questions?
Absolutely not. I'm so sorry.
No,
Do you have an update on the pool, where are we, what's happening?
I do not. I haven't heard about the pool.
Thank you, Lionel.
So the pool, oh, by the way, so the pool, we have an outside vendor helping us maintain the pool. After the second death of Rocky passed away, Alex and the lifeguards have been helping maintain the pool to the best. So it was diagnosed, well, the issue with the pool, there's actually quite a bit besides the sinking in it and the cracks and the leaks. There is the pool is consistent with 3 filters, 3 large filters of sand filters. There's only 1 filter, like 1.5 really working. So when they do a backwash on the pool, it gets really cloudy. And there's a motherboard on there that controls the backwash system. So they recommend that be replaced. The sand has to be replaced because they have to get into the filters, check the seals, check that kind of stuff inside the filters. They recommend going with a glass sand filter system inside the filters. And on top of that, to replace the chlorine motherboard so that controls the chlorine. So, and they suggested to do a dye test.
How much?
They said between, I'm waiting on the quote, but they said between 20 to 30. So,
Timeline, something?
once we get, well, upon approval, they said they need about 6-7 days to get all that work done. Depending on when that happens, you know, we would have to kind of move around the water polo team or the swim team. We got to talk with Dusty. If that happens, kind of hopefully gives them some space to get into practice. But we're still waiting on the quotes.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the phone?
Thank you. Okay, so, finance advisory, Rose?
Hello, good afternoon. Finance and advisory, we met last Thursday. Out of all our committees, we have 5 members for each one of the committees. Most of them are present. As you heard already, what the facilities committee have done, and all the information about it. You also heard about human resources. We don't have much information about curriculum instruction, and we don't have too much about student services. I'm pretty sure next time we're gonna see what is the update, especially on the students. Hopefully there is not too much to discuss. So for the finance, I'm going to give you the highlights. Christine presented the 2024-25 budget update. All the issues that are going within that budget. We know the total revenue for the first interim and then the change that implied with it. We have been told about the total expenses, including all the bargains, agreement, services, supplies, and fees for the year. There are some, everything is being said in millions of dollars. It's amazing that we forgot the thousands word in this sense, and everything is about the billions and the billions. So that's what one part that it's amazing. There's some minor, you can tell now that when Christine is going to give you the numbers, there are some just minor differences due to the rounding in the numbers. Then we talk about the COVID, all the grant revenues and recognitions, because all the grants had to spend. We don't have the COVID grants anymore. It has all been done. We talk about the revenue changes. And then we also know that there are some classified staffing impacts. We have about unfilled and intermittent vacancies. We have one in the business office, bilingual instruction aide, facilities director that we just hired that, facilities maintenance technicians, athletic trainer, student records, and so forth. So all these affect the budget in the payroll. We also spoke about supplies and services and all the changes that comes with it, with the increase and the decrease of it. Categorical overview, and then lastly, we are going to know more about the 2024-25 actuals to the present year. And that was basically what we talked about. Any questions? You will hear more about the numbers with Ms. Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I get started, if I could introduce to the board Ms. Johanna Suarez, who's our new facility director. She's been with us for a couple of weeks, comes with extensive experience in public schools down south. And already I think she's having an impact, but it takes a long time to get to know this campus. It's quite complex. Any questions or?
Yes, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for being here. Okay, we'll get started with the California dashboard, and you can see it's up there. Technically, it's so I don't have the specific data metrics for each one of these. You can just see the colors because it's embargoed. I think for another week or so. But one of the things that I want to point your attention to, that we were projecting, and it seems like it came to fruition, is that both in math and English, we're now in the green. Last year, we were in the yellow in math. Another point in college and career, we are now in the blue, the highest rating, where before we were in the green. English learner progress was, I believe it was orange last year, and now it's in the green. And so in almost all of the metrics, we stayed the same or improved, except for suspension rate, I believe was green last year and is now yellow. So that's something we'll have to monitor. But, this is, the dashboard is in effect the way that, that the charter school office monitors us, the way the state of California monitors us. We're also going to, and it's not in the data here, and we're, Anthony, who's our data manager, I've asked him to go through and look at all these subgroup data fields, because there seems to be some discrepancies from what we'd expect for English learners and students with disabilities. And so I'll share those with you, or I'll at least have the data for you in December. But overall, looks good. We're still looking through each of the subgroups to make sure we're in the place we need to be.
How did the suspension rate change? What were the issues?
It didn't change. It's that it didn't decrease. And so it's at a rate, it's like just over 2%. And if you look at 2% 20 years ago, that would have been considered excellent. Nowadays, the expectation from the state is that you're not suspending anybody. We do suspend some kids, but we were about the same as the year before. And so because there was no appreciable change, we didn't go green. We would have had to decrease by more than 0.3 percentage point. And I believe we were 0.2 percentage point. And so that's why it's yellow and not green.
Any other questions on the dashboard?
Okay, so more on that in December. The next one, the attendance and enrollment update, we can look at the principal update for that. Our month 3 data was 94.4 was our attendance rate. That's the, well, we can do that first if you want. And so that's lottery. And so one of the things that we've done, we spent a lot of money in the past few years in advertising Birmingham. Obviously, we have banners everywhere, and we've tried to through social media and other ways get the word out that Birmingham is a college prep school in addition to being a great athletic school. And the numbers have gone up every year. With all things considered, we wanted to see if we're at the point where we can pull back a little bit. So we didn't spend the dollars this year on advertising, and we can see where it landed. And so right now we're 13 kids less than we had last year. This is for lottery. And so it'll probably be about the same by the time we get to January, when the lottery window closes. The lottery window closes on January 24th. And so this is just where we are now. This is not enrollment. These are the amount of families that have already submitted all their paperwork for the lottery by November 15th. And so you can see where we were in 21-22. It's gone up and up and up. Now we've kind of plateaued, but we're plateauing because it's just word of mouth now. It's not advertising dollars that are helping us get there. Yes.
How many students do we have now that came in from the last? We know.
I want to say 60% is lottery. 60. Follow-up question?
No.
Okay.
Digest.
Okay. So it's where we are. I mean, as you know, we've been able to tune enrollments the way that we wanted because we have enough people on the waiting list. And so we're capped at 3,200 with LAUSD. Presently, our enrollment, and give or take 5 or 10 students, as students move in and out of the school every day. But we're about 110 students higher than we were last year at this time. About 3156, give or take, maybe 3150. Last year at this time, we're at 3045. That includes the comprehensive school as well as the virtual academy. And so based on the as more people have wanted to come to Birmingham and the waiting list has gotten higher and higher, we've been able to, we can basically tune enrollment to whatever we want. Right now, the factors that we consider at this point of the year, we're not gonna bring kids in with 3 weeks left in the school year. We probably will bring some more kids in January for second semester. And so what we usually do is clear the waiting list, start over again, announce it to families, and then allow them to apply to come in again. And obviously, this list right here is just for the fall of 25-26. And so the demand still remains strong. We're running a ton of tours. Tadeo leads that. And I want to say we've had like 20 tours already. And so that's an ongoing piece for us. But so far, so good. And this year we didn't have to spend advertising dollars for it. So that was a benefit.
Hey, Ari,
Yes.
did I hear you correctly? 60% of our student population comes to the school via lottery?
Yes.
Is that number pretty consistent year over year?
It's pretty consistent, a little bit up and down.
Well, shocking.
What do you think it was?
That it was like 10 students.
From lottery?
I mean, I'm exaggerating, but
You didn't think it was that much.
so wait, let me step back. So I assume lottery means kind of that it's students that don't live in our
That's right.
jurisdiction and therefore come via lottery. That might is open enrollment.
Yeah, kind of.
So 2/3 of our population does not live in the immediate community.
That's right.
How does that compare to like the average high school? I'm just now curious.
I think in general, like just from like a sports perspective, most of the neighboring schools, their enrollment is well below, it's like 1,200, 1,300. They're not getting a lot of open enrollment. They don't get a lot of kids. They get whatever kids that go live near them go. And a lot of those kids are trying to come here.
Our lottery availability or whatever is subject to being available. In other words, we're not rejecting students from the local community. We can't. If they're in our jurisdiction.
That's right, we can't. But one thing that's been happening more is more and more people have been, as the demand has increased, more and more people are using false addresses. More and more people. Not for athletic purposes. Not for athletic purposes. Or more and more people are claiming to be homeless. And so we have, and so we have been a lot more aggressive about identifying who those people are and coming up with processes, letting people know that, they have to show us validation of where they're living by a certain date, or else they're going to be disenrolled. So,
it seemed like a big number to me, but I guess
I would. My hunch is El Camino, for example, would be higher than that, higher of lottery versus attendance, just because that area is so expensive. But I don't have a number.
Ari,
Yeah.
can we do a direct outreach to Mulholland?
Did you say can we do it or do we do it?
Do we do?
So I did.
They're across the street.
I did my first couple of years.
Yeah.
And got nothing.
Okay.
Got ghosted. We brought in the board member Schmerlson, Mr. Bennett.
How about Dr. White? Is that?
We've tried to get Scott to step up to the plate.
Where are they sending?
No, they're coming here. They're still coming here.
But we can't get our counselors over there.
And so 50% of the Mulholland senior class, eighth graders come here.
Okay.
So, they're still coming. A lot of them are still coming here. We just get no support from the school.
And Mulholland's boundaries split depending on what side of like, I forget what street it is. Some of them are Recetas homeschool, but they go to Mulholland for their homeschool.
Right.
And some of them are Recetas.
Okay, thank you.
So, we're trying, one of the things we're doing is doing outreach to the elementary schools. And they'll remember, and so we're having a big event for that in December, a toy drive that BSU is sponsoring and bringing in a couple of hundred second and third graders for our BSU students are gonna do not a gift exchange, but they're gonna give gifts that they for their toy drive, and we'll do some fun activities. That's gonna take place in the gym from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock on December the 5th.
I'm interested, which local schools, local could be in the San Fernando Valley,
send the most kids here under a lottery? I would imagine it could be Reseda or Van Nuys.
Under the lottery, I don't know, I mean, I think the number one by attendance boundary is Mulholland, but I don't know the answer to that for the lottery. You got a lot more, we're getting a lot more kids now from like Nobel and not Milliken, it's called Armstrong now. Isaac, do you know?
Yeah, so our enrollment has increased like from Portola area, Armstrong. So yeah, it's trending.
So that would be a Reseda Taft area.
Yeah, I mean, we did I asked Anthony to put into like a Google Maps where all the kids are so we could see it. And it's kind of cool to see, but it's like everywhere. It's not, it's like, I kind of expected it was going to be concentrated in like the Van Nuys area, but it's really everywhere. So and we have some kids that are coming and some not, and they may not be involved in sports. We have some coming from like Palmdale, downtown, all kinds of interesting places. So, you know, hopefully, I mean, it's a good thing. We appreciate that people recognize that Birmingham's a good school that supports their students and they want to send their kids here. So that's a great thing. Going back to attendance. So if you look at the cumulative attendance in the, so when you're in that chart, you see the month-to-month attendance. And so 24-25, we're at 94.4. We didn't miss any attendance days, or we don't have to ask for a J13 for any attendance days in the third month. So that's why those numbers are the same. If you recall, we had an issue in month 2, was a threat that came across on a Sunday. It impacted our attendance. Only like 70 or 80% of our kids showed up. And so we're eligible to apply for a waiver for that. And so if we apply for that waiver, you can see the difference in the attendance rate for month 2 would go from 93.5 to 94.7. First month was when we actually had a lockdown. And that lockdown happened before the school day started. So it had like 50% of our kids showed up. The difference between with that day removed and without was 93% to 95.7. Overall, cumulatively at this point, we're at 94.8. Last year at this time, we were at 95.1. So we're getting closer to the average from last year. The school attendance review team, I know, has been working hard. We've already actually disenrolled a couple kids through the SART process. Last month, we have 3 more kids that are going through that process now. Let me remind the board that should they appeal, the appeal goes to the board. And so like an expulsion, that ultimately can get appealed to the board. If a student is disenrolled as a result of attendance, it will come here. So I just want to put that on everybody's radar. And again, we have 3 kids that are going through that process right now. But I strongly believe that as more and more parents understand that we're serious about attendance, it's ultimately going to move back the other way. But, you know, Birmingham, like all other schools, continues to deal with chronic absenteeism since COVID, and the fact that sort of the contract between families and schools, you know, where it was understood that compulsory education means you came every day, that kind of was thrown out the window after COVID. And so we're trying to get some families back into that understanding that we need the kids here every day. That's what's going to make the student more successful. But and so we're challenged with that and still continue to work hard on it. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Those that are, you see, chronic, would they fall in the lottery? Or do we distinguish between lottery versus?
No.
What's the lottery you can't get rid of? Yours.
So they go through the same process regardless whether they're running student or open enrollment. It really has to do with their like, and also just so you understand, like that, their attendance, not like they're just absent a lot, and we just say, hey, yeah. Like we like meet with them, try to get them in here, hey, say like, what can we do to help you? Like, what's the problem? Like, is it this, is it that? and they go through a whole process. They get kind of like a new contract agreement where they're gonna attend, they got check-ins, all kinds of things. And most of the time, the kids that are coming through that process have just, and parents, by the way, have just failed to meet any of those expectations or even show effort towards it. It's not just a, hey,
Yeah, there's like 6 or 7 steps before you get there. And that includes, the SART, meeting, which provides a contract for the student and the parents. And then they're held responsible for that contract. And then if they don't fail to meet it, the SART team can make a recommendation. But before it gets there, there's a lot of stuff that happens. But there is a myth that if a student is a lottery student, then we can just kick them out. And that's not true.
That's not what I was referring to. I was wondering if there's any information that would be able to distinguish, identify is a better word, I guess, which one might be lottery in that situation where if a student is applying or the family's applying to get in, we may be able to look at their history instead of maybe, if they're students that are going from school to be enrolled but are not showing up in the history of their absentees before they get to us.
Yeah, we're not, I mean, the short answer is we're not allowed to look at that, to make a decision. Obviously, once the kids are here, we're looking at all the information we can. We do pre-assessments for the 8th graders, the rising 9th graders. We do assessments so we know where they are academically. And then, but it's a good example, like at Mulholland, it would be really helpful if they sent us the students' information in the spring so we can do all that preparatory work. I know special education, I think, has a better working relationship with some of the feeder schools, so they can have some of those meetings ahead of time. But sort of generally, does that happen? It doesn't happen the way it should. All right. So
The teacher awards.
Thank you, teacher award. So I didn't include Brandon on here because I didn't have it when this was published, but I have 3 teachers that won awards.
Here, and there, Brendan.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Why is it not on? Okay, good. Glad I did that.
Not the attention. It's on the Dropbox. It's on the Dropbox.
Okay, great. Thank you. I put it on my notes.
Thank you. It's on the Dropbox.
Okay, so Tommy Kim, California League of Educator, Region 8 finalist for High School Educator of the Year. So that's what Tommy Kim. For dinner tomorrow night at CSUN. John White will be there, and he's one of the leaders in Region 8, and we hope that Tommy gets chosen. If he gets chosen, then we'll probably be taking a trip to San Jose in late winter. I think that's what happened last time we went to San Jose. They had a rainstorm and the power went out in the hotel for the entire time we were there. So I hope it doesn't happen this time, but let's go back. Yeah. So that's Tommy Kim. We also had 2 teachers that won awards through National Education Equity Lab. And one was Lindsay Humphrey, the National Enduring Excellence Award. She's done fabulous with all of her classes over three years at this point. Brennan Widger got the Rising Star Award for the excellence of his students, supporting the students in his class for their performance this week. So pretty cool. So that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Right, Steve.
Yes, part of the first interim budget update, wanted to just give a quick overview of the state of the economy. The biggest highlight is the November election. There were 2 items that related to schools directly. The first was Prop 2. It was for a $10 billion school facility fund, $8.5 billion for K-12. And you can see the breakdown. There were certain amounts set aside for new construction, modernization of campuses, $600 million for charter school facilities, and another $600 million for CTE programs. It has a state and local school matching for those grants, but the state has until December 13th to certify the results. And then after the result is certified, as long as it continues to be an approved bond, we'll get more information as far as what we would be allowed to apply for if we're eligible for any of the modernization components. Typically, that's for if we have those modular classrooms that are more than 20 years old, which I think we could have, would we be eligible to apply for that funding for our limited charter schools? And so we'll get more information about that probably in the December, January time. But it's something that we're hopeful that maybe we can get some funding for. The second item that was on the ballot was Prop 32, and that was to increase the minimum wage in California to $18 an hour starting in January. And that proposition did not pass, so there's no implication to our salary schedule for that. Looking at our local budget, here's the overall budget cycle in a given school year. Right now, we're in the process of finalizing the independent audit review of last year's compliance and financial, and also giving a mid-year update to our current year budget. And then we'll wait for the governor's update in January as far as the state budget proposal. When we looked at this year's budget, we're looking at how our actuals came in for the last school year and making adjustments both to revenues and expenditures. We folded in the settlement agreements with all of our bargaining unions, UTLA, PE, and Teamsters. We looked at our current enrollment and attendance trends as well as our unduplicated pupil count. We're looking at our staffing for both certificated and classified for the first few months of the school year, and any grant awards and expenditures that we're planning for this year, as well as looking at how our trends have been for actuals through the month of October, and then making adjustments based on all this information. So the next slide here is the comparison. This is the budget adoption, which was adopted in June and based on assumptions that we had back in April and May of last school year, with our new assumptions for the first interim. Overall, we have revenues increasing $3 million. I have a few slides to talk about some of the details of that. We have LCFS increasing about $200,000 for the J13A waiver that was approved by the CDE for last year. And then we have some timing of our various grants. So revenues increasing $3 million. We have expenses increasing $3.8 million. That's largely driven by the bargaining agreement. So you can see the certificated classified and the payroll taxes and benefits, primarily reserved and first pension costs that are driven off of salary. We also have supplies and services increasing about $900,000, $700,000 in services and $200,000 in supplies. I have a slide to talk more about that in detail. Our capital expenditures are increasing about $100,000, and that's basically all of our capital projects that we depreciate over a number of years. As the bungalows and projects are coming into use, we start depreciating those costs. So that's where we see the increase there. And then we have our LAUSD oversight fees remaining. So we're now projecting a deficit of $2.9 million to our reserves for the current year. So as mentioned earlier, we had our COVID grant money. We were awarded nearly $20 million. The timing of that could be over a 4-year and 3-month time period. So you can see in each of the years, starting with 2020, 21, the one-time COVID grants and how we were spending them. When we were closing out last school year, we had $1 million of the ESSER free money that hadn't been spent yet, and it rolled into this first quarter of this fiscal year. So that was $1 million of the increased revenue to this current year. The COVID money needed to be spent by September 30th, and we met that deadline. Looking at the assumptions for our revenue, we've kept enrollment the same as our budget adoption at 3,100 students and an attendance rate of 94%. Our attendance does fluctuate month to month, and we ultimately get funded when we do our attendance reporting through the month of March. So we're staying with 94%. You can see the cost of living adjustment from the state stayed at the 1.07%. duplicated pupil percentage, while our actual number of students that have, that are socioeconomically disadvantaged, English learners or foster or homeless, is higher than 85% when it comes to our funding through LCFF. We are capped at LAUSD percentage. So we've left it at 85%. That's what LAUSD was at last year. Our percent is closer to 91%, and its LAUSD percent also increases than ours would as well. So we'll have to wait and see what their anticipated future percentage is for the year. So you can see the amount of funding we get per attendance of students. And then for special ed, we receive federal and state funding from LAUSD. They did slightly increase the federal rate, but then they decreased the state rate. So those percents are there. And overall, for every 1% change in our attendance rate is about $530,000 to our budget. Yeah.
I don't understand why we're capped at there.
Yeah, so the calculation is done through the state, and because we're an authorized charter school, we are capped at our authorized when it comes to LCFF. Well, there's other grants and funding like our Title I monies or different apportionments that we get from the state. We get to do our actual data, but unfortunately, the way that the current legislation is we're capped at our. And so if we look at the revenue change, what makes up the $3 million of increased revenue for this year? 1.2 million is grant carryover from last year, so $1 million of it was after, and then we have some Title I monies that are being spent this year. We have timing, the art, music, instructional material block grant that the board approved to start spending in this current year for operational costs. So we brought in $1 million from next year into the current year, as well as the A to G grant, the educator effectiveness grant. So we spent over a number of years. We pushed forward the timing of that spending into the current year. We've increased the interest earnings that we're getting through the county treasury. Interest rates have still been high, and so we've increased our estimate there. And then again, the J13A approval is going to bring in another about $200,000. Overall, the revenue would be 3.2 higher, although the special ed revenue is going down to about $200,000. That's where we get to the net $3 million increase for this year. When we look at the expenditures for classified, we do have some unfilled and intermittent vacancies throughout the school. And so obviously there's, with the vacancies, there's payroll savings there for those positions. We also have some short and long-term leaves of absences that also then have payroll reductions, and that's kind of offsetting a little bit temporarily the raises through the bargaining agreement. The next slide is showing the $900,000 of increased costs for supplies and services. There's several areas across the board. There's not one thing that's driving those increases. Instructional materials, a big one there was LAUSD previously had paid for the AP test, and they are no longer funding that for the charter schools, so that was an increased cost. General increased software costs have gone up versus what we had planned. Special education services, looking at the needs of our students this year are different. We did have equipment costs that we've increased for the CTE classrooms, the cafeteria project that we had planned to start last year that's happening now. Those costs roll into this year. We had IT network and security configuration, a lot of the MFA and firewall work has increased the cost for our outside services. The insurance costs were based on an estimate. We got our final estimate bill from Charter State that was higher than we had planned. Utilities also, the cost of those go up when we looked at what we spent last year, so we needed to make an adjustment to this year, as well as the school police contract and all of the overtime we do on our special events is higher than what it was. So making all of those adjustments to our budget is driving an increase there. So this is the timing of all of our categoricals. We only have one grant expiring this year. It's the kitchen infrastructure grant that we're using for all of the cafeteria upgrades. And then you can see the educator effectiveness of Beta G, art, music, instructional material block grant that are expiring next year. That's where we started sending those dollars in this year. The next slide is kind of comparing now the first interim budget assumption to how we're trending through October of this year, and we're really in line. Overall revenues, there's a delay in when we get some of our money from the state, our lottery money, typically comes in December. Some of our grants that we were going to happen later. So that's the delay in the state revenue. For payroll costs, we're pretty much in line now with these adjustments. And then supplies and services tend to run low during the year. There's a delay in when we get our invoices that are often monthly or quarterly, so there's a little lag there, and then we're on track with our other expenditures. So through October, we're showing a reduction there in our reserves, but we do still have our cash reserve. And then we have to also look at the next 2 years. So here you can see the assumptions for our multi-year projection for the current year as well as the next 2 years. We're still leading the same enrollment of 3,100 and the 94% attendance, and duplicated people percentage the same. You can see the funding that we get for ADA that does increase each year due to the cost of living adjustment that's applied. So you can see that. We do include assumptions for step and column movement for our staff at 3%. The multi-year projection includes the settlements for both this year and for next year. So those costs are included, and we don't have anything included for the 26-27 year. You can also see the cost of PERS and STIRS, the dollar amount as well as the percentage of salary that have to be contributed towards the pension. And then there's also the line for one-time grant. So you can see this year we're using $5.3 million of one-time grants, and as those grants are expiring in these out years, there's less and less available dollars there to help offset our operational costs. So the next slide here, and it's always hard to see a lot of numbers there, but you can see the last 4 years of actuals. The 24-25 is the first interim budget for this year, and then the next 2 years based on the assumptions that were just discussed. And so the yellow line is the net operating costs. If we just look at our revenues and our expenses, you can see that we're clearly deficit spending. There is a line for then the one-time revenues that are helping to offset that. And the blue line then is the net overall impact to our reserves. So for this year, we're projecting the $2.9 million deficit. So that would be reducing our reserve level. And so then you can see that that amount, that decrease does grow exponentially in the out years with the various assumptions that we're looking at. So we're looking into ways to right-size this, and we'll have some other adjustments to be made in the second interim. There are substantial reserves that we have right now, and just a reminder that those reserves are made up of various components that we've got restricted reserves that only can be spent on certain things. We have classified education balances. We also have capital projects we started, and we can use our funds to finish those projects. And then we want to have an operational reserve, just in terms of if there's any kind of economic uncertainty, we want to know that we have the cash to maintain operations without any issues. So this is our first interim budget update. It would be submitted to LAUSD. Next month, the auditors will present their audit report for last year's financials. And then in January, the governor will get his budget proposal that includes both last year. We can actually make adjustments to 23-24 that's code. We can make adjustments to the current year, and then he gets his projection for next year's state budget. And then we'll use that information to update our school budget at the second year.
Any questions? Doris?
Christine, could you go back to page 12? It's, the heading says factors for multi-year projection. Maybe it's just an easy answer. The enrollment is listed all the way across for the 3 years at 3,100, but I thought Ari said we were capped at 32. So can you explain the difference?
We are capped at 32, but our enrollment does change from month to month. So we do start with enrollment, and then we have students that do leave during semesters, and then we kind of adjust. But we're using a flat 3,100 for now to be conservative.
But another 100 kids would bring in more money.
If they're actually here.
Yes, but, well,
So could you go to 3250 and lose 50 kids?
and
I'm just
so,
asking. I mean,
Yeah.
we used to do things.
yes, I think, those are things that we're looking at. We've talked about what our margin for error
Yeah,
is with the district.
Okay.
And I think there may be some flexibility there. But I mean, I appreciate that Christine is conservative. I'd rather her be too conservative than not and budget like that. But obviously there are some structural things that we're gonna need to change to right size the budget because we can't just continue spending like we're spending in the out years or else we're gonna have a
I
problem.
want her to be conservative, but I don't like the deficits that we see coming.
Yes.
Just ask.
Well,
Okay.
and yeah, I agree with you. I don't like them either. And so that's a conversation we have on the daily.
Thank you.
Dick?
I think the tough situation, right, is we've grown to this place where we have all these amazing programs, like from athletics to how many college counselors we have and all these things that we see that are growing in response to what we've done. And we're only gonna be able to cut back so much. And even if we did, it feels like from what we're seeing that you could cut back as much as you could, and we still wouldn't necessarily catch up. So like, what's prohibiting us from expanding certain things that could generate more revenue, like the virtual academy? I mean, it feels like since it's virtual, why does it have a cap or a limit to the number of kids that can be enrolled in it compared to, I mean, because there's no buildings, they're not in seats, like, you know, and there are other ways to figure out ways to generate more revenue, because at some point you can only squeeze the juice too much, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you're thinking like we're thinking. I think that is one area that we're gonna go. And I think we probably have more flexibility there, BVA. You know, and our, you know, it is something for us to consider when we go through charter renewal. Do we want to push to get the cap raised a little bit? Because we can, because even though we have limited space here, if we were 3,200 here and then 100 in BVA or 120 in BVA, then that's pretty significant. The other thing that we talked about is the international, restarting the international program. And so we're in the process of applying through Homeland Security to be able to restart that program. You know, that program can generate a lot of dollars. And so those two things are the biggest things that we're thinking of. You know, and then something else we might have to consider is bell schedule, or the alternating block is very expensive. And so does a 7-period day make more sense for us financially while still having all the benefits of the double block? And I think that's a conversation we started to have with CNI. And so I don't know what the right answer, but there are a lot of different levers that we have that we're looking at, and you know, we hope to have a plan in place by second interim, so we can say this is where we're going to be going to address the budget deficit.
Yeah, because that's just the only thing, like we've seen like some similar stuff like presented, and obviously, like I said, we have more counselors, more service support people for the students, and it's helping them. So we don't want to take those things away. All the outside programs we have, we don't want to take them away. We got to figure out a way to keep them going as best as we can. Because it's obviously, and even with the Bellsman, I mean, maybe, I don't know, just from even hearing it, it's tough. I mean, it's working relatively, right? If you're looking at all these things you just present on the dashboard, where it's green, things are moving up. It would be hard to say, hey, change this schedule because of money. You know what I mean? I understand both sides of it, but it feels like we should be doing everything we possibly can to keep everything going the way it is, to keep providing what we're providing, and try to limit is cutting back and look to increase revenue. That's
Well, I agree. with you. I think the last thing, you know, when I go through the budget, the last thing I want to change, the most impactful thing for students are the adults. And so that's the most important thing. It's not programs, it's ultimately the people that are supporting the students. And so that's the last thing we want.
Christina, on that same slide 13, the stern and furs stays flat. Is that?
No, so the first percentage does stay the same at 19.5%.
That's right.
But,
Is that a real number?
that is a real percentage, it's statutory. It can change, so the STRS board would have to vote to change that percent. But that is the projected
That'll be
percent.
just stay.
And for classified for PERS, that rate does change, year to year, it does change slightly. But it has no, and so when I look at the next 5 years, that percentage continues to go up.
But through 27, those are actual
Those are
percent.
the actual as of now.
So approximately, what's our average class size? I know probably always that. Do we have a number for that?
Around 32.
And if I ask for that, will there have, that's it, what would that be? About. I said, if I ask for that, or their average class size, what is that? Just curious. The 30s? Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Thank you. Okay, consent agenda, we're gonna, credit card and the check register for October, regular board minutes for October, and we'll take those two together, and then the compliance monitoring certificate, second for that. So we'll take a motion to approve, and we'll do items 1 and 2 by consent. Is there a motion to approve items 1 and 2 on consent? Move second? Move second? Any additions or corrections to those 2 items? Seeing none, items 1 and 2 are approved. Item 3, the annual compliance monitoring, prior to the chart of business, right? So it's the checklist of everything they want to know about the school, and everything's either compliant, could be compliant, but don't even think about it. So they're all checked.
It's stuff like we have to submit our master schedule, we have to submit, that we have our EL plan. You know, so a lot of compliance stuff like that.
So, I don't know, see, is it in Dropbox? It's in Dropbox. Is there a motion to approve the, compliance monitoring certificate? Move second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Carries. All right. Action items. Item 1, approval of board policy number 71, section 504 policy, procedures and parent rights. It's all in the Dropbox, it's all mailed to you. Is there a motion to approve item number 1? Move second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. All right.
Isaac was ready for you guys.
Yeah, it's over the top. There's a PTA meeting following this, I'm trying to make sure we don't overlap. Item number 2 was actually, repeal item board policy 17, 18, 19, because they have been merged into what we just approved. So the motion to, make those 17, 18, 19 obsolete. Move second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. Good. Item number 3, approval of the 24-25 first interim budget. Move second. Any discussion?
1 second.
Some over here.
I'll second.
Move second. All right, all those in favor of approving item number 3 say aye. Aye. Opposed? motion carries. All right, now on item 4 and 5, we're gonna ask board members who are employees to recuse themselves from item 4 and item 5, so we'll call the roll. Is there a motion to approve item number 4, approve the successor agreement with CEU from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2026? Moved, the second?
Second.
Moved, seconded, any discussion? All right, seeing none, please call the roll on item number 4.
Bob Alexander,
Approved.
Marla Benjamin, Mike Bennett,
Yes.
Nick Howard, Doris Lassiter, yes. Bob Marks?
Yes.
Ron Oswald,
Yes.
Antonio Fasano?
Yeah.
Lori? Michael Powell? Violetta Millman? Michael Williams?
Yes.
Virginia Withrow? Yes.
The motion is approved. Thank you. Congratulations, CEU. Item number, Item number 5, approval of confidential management administrative employee salary increase aligned to UTI salary increase, 5% retroactive July 1st, 2024, and 3% as of July 1st, 2025. Confidential hour employees will receive the same increase as CEU. Is there a motion to approve item number 5?
So moved.
A second. Second. Moving second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bob Alexander?
Yes.
Marla Benjamin? Mike Bennett?
Yes.
Nick Howard? Doris Lassiter, yes. Bob Marks?
Yes.
Ron Oswald?
Yes.
Antonio Fasano?
Yeah.
Lori? Michael? Powell, sorry.
Dr. Q.
Violetta Millman? Michael Williams?
Yes.
Virginia Withrow? Yes. Thank you.
Motion is approved. Thank you. All right, items.
Before we go on, a lot of work was done on the 504 stuff. And so can they pass it out to you guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are they giving us?
I thought you were talking about. I was looking for a lecture.
What are they
A
talking about?
lecture.
For fun, I didn't know.
Thank you.
No way.
I'm taking my vote back.
This is good.
I want to hear you.
No question?
Well, so can you share what's in the board? Not to me, the microphone. Okay.
So I want to introduce one of my counselors, Ms. Mercedes Vasquez. She's been working very hard on updating our 504 policy and making sure that we are in compliance as a council team. And there's a lot that we need to do. So she'll explain briefly what it's about.
Hello, everybody. If you turn to your packet, the first page is really just a very brief summary of what the changes are. If you want to know the exact changes, like where the language was changed, what was taken out, what was put in, the second page is going to show you very specifically where the changes are. And most changes went into defining more language into what 504 is. I think a lot of times 504 gets swept under the rug under IEP, but it's a very different law, very different rules, very different procedures. So with the 504, we're expanding on terminology. We're also going to be very specific on what federal law is within our policy. It wasn't showing that in our old board policy. There's also outdated staffings in the old policy that we're going to be removing and replacing the 504 designation. Those are the main changes, but again, if you want to see a specific, exact, like verbatim, it's going to show you what page to look at on page 2. And also it's going to show you the old policy and a copy of the updated policy that you all just approved. So I guess that is the new policy. So, yeah.
So in one sense, it's 504 policy is what?
Great question. So 504 is really civil rights law that protects students who have disabilities. So it would be changing or accommodating things in the classroom for students to have better equal access. An easy example I use is if a student has diabetes and the classroom rule is no snacks in the classroom, that student can have snacks in the classroom because they need it based on what they need for their disability. So students that have a disability, they're protected under this 504 law.
I knew that, that's.
Oh, yeah. I know, yeah.
Thank you.
In order for us to stay compliant with 504 law, I did create a set of documents, which is the second. I'm not going to go over all of this, but it's the second packet. There's a presentation I had created that I had given to our counseling team, so they're now more updated on what the policies are. But it's going to show us what documents that we are using to do our evaluation process for students who are asking for a 504, and the evaluation process for students are up for reevaluation, which should happen every 3 years to be compliant or if needed by the student. So these are updated documents that have been approved by legal so that we know that we're in compliance and that we are following student regulations for reevaluations. Any questions?
How many students are covered by a 504 here at Birmingham, would you say?
What's happening across the United States is that they're finding that students are not being adequately found who do qualify for disabilities. So that's through child find. And a lot of students that should qualify for a 504 are not being given 504s. So across the United States, we're really working on being better to identify these children and give them the 504 plans. They're currently also expanding this to include mental illness and mental health disabilities, such as anxiety or depression, which they're training schools on now to get counselors and teachers and parents more aware of what their rights are as students with disabilities. Birmingham, right now, I think one push is we need to get better at child find, in my opinion. We have about 50 students, but that's, I don't think is accurately just, there's more students who would qualify. I don't think that's accurately.
Seems pretty low.
Yeah, well, yeah, but that's, again, that's a national concern, but I think with our team being as strong as it is, we can kind of push that so we can be better at child finding.
You just explained, I know what the answer is to my question, the difference between 504 and special ed.
An IEP.
The IEP.
Oh, you want me to explain that?
Well, short version.
Oh,
Very short.
all right, so the shorthand version would be, if a student doesn't need the curriculum changed to access, then they wouldn't do that. So for example, I have students that have ADHD, and ADHD is so severe that the curriculum needs to be changed. They're not doing well at our school. That's a red flag for me to connect with the IEP team. If I have a student that has ADHD, but they're doing fine in their classes, they don't need the curriculum change, they just need some modifications like making breaks, maybe extra time on assignments. You're not changing your access to the curriculum, you're just changing the modifications for them in the classroom. So sometimes there's some overlap, which is why I think 504 sometimes gets confused with an IEP, but they're different laws. So we're trying to get better as a nation to separate them in our conversations.
Is it the responsibility of the school to identify?
Yes, yes, that's child find law. And actually, the cool thing about this new documentation is that the form, the very first form, so if a student, a parent, a staff member, a counselor suspect that a 504 might be needed, the first form is for them to fill out to start the evaluation process. So teachers can start the evaluation process, staff members can start that, counselors can, or parents. If they think that their student might qualify for a 504.
And one advantage of a 504 for maybe a senior is it's not special ed, but if it's approved, it allows them to have extension in time on their college entry exams. So
If it's written into their accommodations, yes.
if it's into the 504, and that's something in recent years parents have.
Which is why the evaluation process is good, because there are sometimes parents who learn about this and try to cheat the system, but their student doesn't necessarily qualify for a 504. So that kind of helps us get better data to see if the student is requiring one, or maybe if they're not requiring one.
Well, my experience is you need to get an outside, an expert, could be a psychologist, could be
Not
some kind of
always,
MD. If
actually.
we're gonna go down
a lot.
that road, that they need extended time and stuff of that sort.
Where it's going now is you technically do not need to have an official diagnosis to have a 504. But if the data is showing that you have symptoms of this strong enough, then you could still write a 50451. We wouldn't be able to legally tell someone they have to go and get a diagnosis and come back.
How are you guys made aware of this?
A 504?
Like, or the availability?
You know, honestly, I think that's something that we could see in the future. I think it would be great to have 504 presentation with medical therapy center. I would love that. I think that'd be a good idea.
I mean, I'm half joking, but I'm really not, because I'm just thinking as parents,
Yeah.
the parents are the best ones to know their kids, diagnose their kids. If they know these services are available, and it's not necessarily an IEP or special ed, because in my community, those things are very scary, right? You know, this is like the next best thing.
I 100% agree. I think that we could have a point person, so parents know who to contact if they have questions, because this can be very technical, and the law is always super.
No, I'm being serious. I mean, before each school, there should be a webinar, every teaching night or whatever on this.
I think that'd be a really
But
good
the parents
idea.
will go back home, because you know what, I think my child can do this. And it's not the scary IEP or the scary special ed things that, in particular, my community is anti, generally speaking. I can say
What
that.
happens, what's cool is when we get students, the incoming freshmen, we're notified that they have a 504. But what we're noticing again across everywhere in the United States is the elementary schools are identifying them correctly, the middle schools are. So just because we're getting high school kids, we might have students that would benefit from a 504 who currently do not have one.
I know, I know, special education. I was aware of it, but it was not, I think we talked about it very.
Well, not just that, but I mean, I've had several cases where there's been family plans where kids potentially could get tested, and it's usually the IEP route or special ed route, and there's adults that think, oh no, my kid's fine, it would be that, right? Because it's just an ugly, scary, unknown thing, right? So, I mean, this is.
What I would love to see with 504s, after working with this for the past year, what I would love to see is definitely parent seminars, but also staff training. I think 504s as a team at Birmingham, we're still kind of confused as to what that is, what it looks like. If you're a teacher who sees maybe the student is showing their systems or some certain symptoms and there might be something going on, what can I do? I think it'd be great to do some staff training on teachers, counselors, and our IEP team to know what is a 504 and what do I do to follow this evaluation process. And that'd be great. Any other questions about 504? Thank you. Thank you for your time. I will have this discussion. If there's any questions, we'll have this please email or you can call, right? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Item, action items 7 through 11. The overnight.
6 through 11.
No, we pulled 6. Right, 7 through 11, we'll do it and bang. An overnight field trip, girls wrestling to Napa. Overnight field trip, boys wrestling to Clover. Overnight field trip, boys wrestling to Metro. Overnight field trip, boys soccer to Oceanside. And an overnight field trip, World Strides Choir Festival to Anaheim. With a motion to approve those 5 trips.
So moved.
Move the second. Any discussion? Anybody gonna go in and have a good time? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All approved, thank you.
Michael, there's the phone number 6
Close the paperwork for submission time. Okay, all right, we're gonna go into a closed session for one legal consultation. And there's gonna be a PK meeting called for the, right. Yeah, closed session litigation, yeah.